GT7 1.46 is of course here, and it's time as always to talk about my overarching thoughts about the vehicles, any new features, motor swaps. Of course I will be featuring the motor swaps in a brief video tomorrow to add that to the overarching list. So first of all, let's talk about features, races, that kind of stuff. We have the new Ferrari collection book, which is incredibly annoying for two reasons to me. One, it is definitely a squandered opportunity because they could have done a similar thing to what the Jag D-Type was like last time around. I think that was actually a great idea, almost like having prize cars back in the older games, which was great. Then they squandered it because it was a prime opportunity to have something like an Enzo or an FXXK as a prize car, or maybe even something like a 250 GTO. Not only is it not, it's just a 6-star roulette ticket, big deal, but also it means that you actually have to already have one of the invite-only cars to begin with, the LaFerrari, which I don't have, so I haven't been able to complete that myself. Anyway, I would be interested to know, perhaps in the comments from those who have already completed that because you have the cars, what was the prize? Maybe if it was a vehicle ticket, it could be a pretty good one, but I'd have to defer to you and see for those folks who did do that. As far as new events, of course, there are not many, only 3: new Vision GT event, new Japanese event, new American event. Of course, I'll show that in the video, as well as the patch notes themselves. There are some new motor swaps, as I said. They're a curious mix. The Lexus LC500, and it is not the engine swap which you're expecting. We would probably all assume it would be a Lexus LFA V10. It isn't. In fact, this time around it seems that the theme is kind of drift car based because they're all V8 swaps. You can put V8s into even the Group 4 Veyron, which also really doesn't make any sense. Again, I thought naturally that the Group 4, I mean, first of all, why would you ever need to swap a Group 4 car anyway? It makes it virtually useless for Group 4 racing, but even if you were, surely you'd put a Chiron engine into it. But actually, no, it's the BRZ drift car engine, which makes no sense. That has no connection that I'm aware of to a Group 4 Bugatti or any Bugatti for that matter, so it's a bit of a weird selection. Like I said, I will touch on that more tomorrow when we talk about it. One of them, though, is pretty good. You can actually engine swap the C1 Corvette, which will be great for a future special projects build because we might be able to build the Art Morrison Corvette from Gran Turismo 6, which would be pretty cool, and that would add to those bunch of vehicles that I've done, like the Red Devil Camaro and various others too. So that's that. We've got some new Scapes as well in San Diego. They're fine, to be honest. I don't think any of these Scapes really jump out at me. I used one of them for the thumbnail, but that was about it. And naturally then we need to get to the cars. So first things first, let's talk about the Skoda. The Skoda is not to everyone's taste, but not because it's a Skoda, more so because it's a Vision GT, and even more so because it's electric. So what is it like? Did they fumble the ball, or is this one of the rare good ones? Well, for me it's a bit of a mixed bag. It definitely isn't slow. It has a single forward gear, direct drive, torque vectoring, so it has the potential, certainly with 1,300 kilos of weight, which is pretty good for an electric car, all-wheel drive with torque vectoring and 1,070 horsepower. Well, that's quite similar to something like a Rimac, so the potential is definitely there for it to be good. Unfortunately, it has the typical trait of just a bit too much power going to the front end, which of course you cannot adjust, so it does have a tendency to pull through corners, having quite a lot of understeer. It's way better than the Lamborghini, for example. It's way better than something like the Subaru, which was just about the worst for that, having that super heavy front end. It's definitely quick enough to get some decent lap times, 2 seconds quicker here at Spa than the Aston Martin Valkyrie. So that's pretty good, but the thing that you've got to remember is it's only 10 points higher than the Valkyrie, and the Valkyrie was on sports tyres. This is on racing mediums. So, ironically, it's less of a show of how quick the Skoda is and more of just reiterating how ridiculously OP the Valkyrie is, because it really is probably one of the best cars we've ever had in an update. This one, though, to go back to it, another huge disappointment, to be honest. Not surprising for an electric car, but the top speed is not very good. In fact, even by Vision GT standards, it's very slow. You'll have seen it here in the video, up around 192, I think it was, miles an hour. That's really not very useful for many tracks, especially, ironically, in Vision GT events, because in the mid 850 point region you can get some seriously quick Vision GTs, including other electric ones, potentially even, for example, if you detune the Jaguar, the SV Vision GT, which has a ridiculous amount of performance for an electric car, that thing will blow the doors off of this. Of course, I do love the fact that it's a Skoda. I did my own custom livery for it. I absolutely love Skoda. I love the branding, I love the livery, I love their rally heritage. To me, this is just kind of missing the point of Skoda. It feels to me more like it may as well be a Volkswagen Vision GT, because of course that's really what Skoda is these days. But I feel like it was a wasted opportunity, because although the inspiration does come from Skoda, Skoda isn't really as well known for sports car racing as it is for rally. And I think leaning into the rally side would have been a cooler idea. Next up though, we have the Chevelle. The Chevelle is the one which I think you'll probably enjoy the most if you're not that bothered about any of the three. It's got some very interesting visual upgrades, you'll see them in the video. The wide body mostly deletes the chrome from around the arches, you can also debadge it. And probably the strangest thing is you can put like a drag racing style rear wing on the back, which is such a weird coincidence that they would add a drag wing on a Chevelle literally at the same time as in Forza Horizon 5. They've just added the first ever pro stock drag car into the Forza series. So very, very ironic timing there, except the difference is that's an actual drag car and this just looks like one. That being said, you can get some very impressive power out of the engine. Of course, I will be talking about it more in its own review, but it handles really well. It's got that great like Jack Reacher kind of vibe. You could have, I said to someone the other day, a showdown in Scapes, or a race between like the Jack Reacher Chevelle versus the John Wick Mustang, and it is a super badass car. I've come to love the Chevelle a lot more over time. Of course, it has been in the franchise before, but it was never a premium. Very cool to have it back, and it's got that proper big, heavy, chunky muscle factor. Of course, I'm going to be partial to that, but yeah, very, very cool car, and I'll get in depth on my thoughts in its own review. Finally, then, we have the Afeela. The Afeela is a car which I feel like pretty much no one really cared about, except for maybe Sony. To me, it looks like a concept taxi, the kind of thing you'd see Google make, or Apple, maybe the Apple car, the kind of thing you'd see driving around, you know, San Fran on autopilot, and I guess more recently being set on fire by people in the street, because apparently San Francisco is just a hellscape at this point and has been for a while. But this one has some interesting numbers. You can figure out the horsepower and torque by comparing it in your garage, even though you're not told what they are. So I managed to find that it's got 482 horsepower and it weighs 2,350 kilos. That's nearly 2.4 tons, so about the same weight as my Lincoln Continental. That's a ridiculously heavy vehicle, but of course being electric with a big battery pack, not too surprising. In terms of performance, again, you'll see it here in the video, it's okay. It reminds me quite a lot, actually, of the Fisker Karma, or the older Tesla that we used to have. Well, I guess it's technically the same Tesla, but how the Tesla used to feel in Gran Turismo 6 with fewer upgrades, where it's just like a 130, 140 mile an hour kind of car with not that much use. The handling is about as heavy as you'd expect, certainly with that kind of weight. Unfortunately, you can't really do much to it either. So the fact that it's just under 550 points without changing the tyres isn't really a great start. The most curious thing about it, though, as you will have seen here in the video, is that like the Ambulance, it's actually free, which makes it even more clear that this is a marketing thing. I mean, if you were in any doubt. It's not a bad car, I guess, it's just kind of a pointless one. It's a useless marketing gimmick, and that's all it really is. It really makes me, at least, appreciate when something like the Nike One came out back in Gran Turismo 4, because that thing was like one of the OG Vision GT cars before that was even a thing, and yet it didn't feel like a marketing gimmick. It's kind of crazy just how cool the Nike was, and the fact that so many of us actively missed that car, compared to nobody would miss this if it was gone. $1 million for the Vision GT, 163 grand for the Chevelle, and nothing for the Afeela, so that's not too bad. And for those who don't care about Vision GTs, it's one of the cheapest updates yet. 160k gets you the Chevelle and you're good to go. No circuit is, again, yet another disappointment. I mean, I'd say let's hope for next month, but who really cares at this point? They're clearly not interested in adding them anytime soon. And it does feel to me in some ways almost like they're treating the game in ways that you usually would when you're winding down. And so many people have been defending the fact that they think Gran Turismo 7 has years and years more to go, which I probably do agree with. I would say there's at least 1 to 2 more years at minimum, to be honest, before a next Gran Turismo game gets shown. Not releases, just trailers and stuff. But having stuff like the Jag D-Type be a winnable vehicle last month, these kind of throwaway vehicles like the Afeela, it feels like an end-of-life kind of thing. which is odd to me because I don't think it is the end of life. It's just such an awful roadmap for stuff that they're releasing. It doesn't really make any sense, and it gives you a weird mismatch feeling. Or maybe that's just me. I don't know. I would love to hear the thoughts of you guys though down in the comments. Have you noticed any weird bugs, changes to point levels, maybe some new cash cow events that might have been changed or altered, or new vehicles? And certainly if you found any immediate use for these three, I'd love to hear about it as well, or perhaps any fun that you've had with those crazy, very mismatched engine swaps this time around. That's it for my thoughts though on GT7 1.46. Of course though, I will be releasing the additional engine swaps video tomorrow as its own dedicated thing. I will also be reviewing one of the cars first, probably the Chevelle initially, and then of course the other two in days to follow. And if you're not already a channel member, tomorrow is going to be the next part of my high roller project, which I'm really looking forward to because I went over there to the workshop today and it is looking awesome. I might even flash up a quick picture of it in the video because, for those who don't know, I'm building a four-wheel drive turbo diesel Dakar rally spec Rolls Royce in real life, and boy is it coming together, and it looks absolutely awesome. It's about 6'7", probably around 2.5 tons of awesomeness, and I can't wait for it to be finished. But that's in the members section. Like I said, it's £2 a month for all of the access, and you could do it once and then never do it again if you wanted to and just watch everything in 1 month. But I'll leave that down to you. Tell me your thoughts on the update, and I'll see you tomorrow with more. But for now, thanks for watching.